الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تبارك وتعالى واسأل القرية التي كنا فيها والعير التي أقبلنا فيها وإنا لصادقون قال بل سولت لكم أنفسكم أمرا فصبر جميل عسى الله أن يأتيني بهم جميعا إنه هو العليم الحكيم صدق الله العظيم اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد كلما ذكره الذاكرون وصل على سيدنا مولانا محمد كلما غافل عن ذكره الغافلون اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد أفضل صلواتك رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam finally left Egypt with the exception of their youngest brother Binyamin and their eldest brother, whose name some say was Sham'un or Simon. Some say his name was Rubel. Whatever the name of the eldest was, or Yehuda, that was one of the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam. So now, out of 12, 9 are left. 3 are now in Egypt. One had been living in Egypt for a long time. The other one was kept by force in Egypt. And the third one refused to leave because he was embarrassed to face his father after having lost 2 of his brothers. After having lost Yusuf and Binyamin. So when these brothers returned home to Canaan in Palestine, they reported back to their father that we could not bring back Binyamin because Binyamin had committed theft. Inna ibnaka saraq. Your son committed theft. Now when they were saying that your son committed theft, according to what they know, they were not lying. Because they didn't know what that their brother was framed and the theft was planted in his luggage. What was obvious was what they told their father. But in reality, it was something else. In reality, neither Binyamin had committed theft, nor was he kept in Egypt under arrest or in detention by force. It was all by a plan. And that plan was the plan of Yusuf alayhi salam, and that plan was given to Yusuf alayhi salam by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So at the end, it was Allah's plan all along in different forms and in different ways that was working. So sometimes you may be telling someone what appears to be truth to you, but it may not be the truth. You may see something that you are reporting on, but what you are seeing is not what the reality is, what the fact is. The fact could be something else. So they told their father Yaqoob A.S. that your son Binyamin committed theft, and therefore he was arrested and he was kept in detention. They would not let him go, and we had to come without him. At the same time, they told their father about the eldest brother as well, that your eldest son refused to leave Egypt on his own because he he could not have the courage to face you after all of this, because he was ahead of everyone else in giving commitment and solid promise to Yaqoob A.S. that we will make sure we bring Binyamin back. And now they failed him on that promise. So the eldest is not coming back because of that reason. And the eldest said, I will not leave this land, لَنْ أَبْرَحَ الْأَرْض حَتَّى يَأْذَنَ لِي أَبِي, unless my father gives me explicit permission to come back home, أَوْ يَحْكُمَ اللَّهُ لِي, or Allah makes a decision in my case, and Allah decides that I should come back home. Only then I will come back home, otherwise I will stay in Egypt. So now, in order to substantiate their claim that they were telling truth this time, they told their father, Yaqoob A.S., وَاسْأَلِ الْقَرْيَةِ, ask the people of that town where we were, because they were in Egypt for a few days, and in a matter of few days you can really tell what kind of person that person is that is living with you, that is spending time with you. You can judge them in some ways by their character, by their talk, by their words, by their actions, and you can find out whether the person is a liar or a person is a truth teller. So they said to their father, وَاسْأَلِ الْقَرْيَةِ, you can ask the people of that town where we were that we didn't commit any theft. We were being very law-abiding. We were doing everything right, legally and lawfully, and we didn't commit theft. We were accused of theft. وَالْعِيرَ الَّتِي أَقْبَلْنَا فِيهَا, and you can ask the caravan in which we returned as well. A long time was spent in the journey back to Palestine. So the caravan that accompanied these brothers of Yusuf A.S., they said, you can ask the caravan as well, and they will tell you the same thing, that we were being honest, we were being truthful, and we didn't do anything wrong all along, and we were just framed, and we were accused of this theft. Now, Yaqoob A.S., instead of believing his children, he said the same thing at this time, what he said the first time when they came back to him and told him that Yusuf was eaten by a wolf. بَلْ أَكَلَهُ الذِّئْبُ. So at that time, Yaqoob A.S. told his children, قَالَ بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ أَمْرًا. He said, no, but you have yourselves contrived, you have made up something, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. So I will just exercise patience at this moment of test and at this moment of pain, grief and hardship. He repeated the same words here as well. فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. So I am going to be patient and I'm going to exercise patience. عَسَى اللَّهُ أَن يَأْتِيَنِي بِهِمْ جَمِيعًا. Maybe Allah will bring them back all to me in the end. إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ. Because Allah is all-knowing and all-wise. In the first moment when they lost Yusuf and they came back and told their father that Yusuf got eaten by a wolf, they were truly lying. And Yaqoob A.S. was right to not to believe them. In this case, when they reported to Yaqoob A.S. that your son committed theft, they were telling the truth according to what they saw and what they observed. And when they told Yaqoob A.S. the truth, Yaqoob A.S. refused to believe the truth from them, because they had been proven once before that they were lying. So Yaqoob A.S., he believed the same thing, that they are lying this time as well. The scholars have said that sometimes you can make mistake in judging other person. So you may believe someone when they're not telling the truth, and you may reject someone when they are telling the truth. In the first example, they were not telling the truth, and Yaqoob A.S. was right to reject them. And this time, they were telling the truth, but Yaqoob A.S. did not believe them. And that also tells us that sometimes your reputation matters. If you have a history in the past of lying, then you will be suspected of lying even when you are telling the truth. And when you have a record of telling the truth, then it is more likely that you will be believed. In the science of hadith, we have different categories of ahadith. There are those ahadith that we call sahih, which means strong. Sahih doesn't mean true. Sahih means or correct. Sahih means strong. Then there are those ahadith which are called da'if, which means weak. These ahadith are categorized in these classes, in these classifications, due to the chain of narrators. So in the chain of narrators, there are individuals, people just like you and me. Those individuals who become part of a chain of a hadith, the scholars of hadith like Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Imam Abu Dawud, Imam Tirmidhi, these experts of hadith, they always look at the person in the chain of narrators who is narrating the hadith. And they really study the life of that person. So they go and they find out, they do investigations. Like right now, people, if you are applying for a job, or if you're applying for citizenship, or if you're applying for a visa, they will investigate your background. What are background checks? Background checks are run for a prospective employee or someone applying for a visa, someone applying for immigration. They want to make sure that this person who wants to get employment or who wants to get a visa or citizenship doesn't have criminal history. So if someone has criminal history, they will automatically reject. That person will be refused most likely employment, will be declined visa, will be declined immigration or citizenship. All of those things will be denied based on the history and the record. So in the chain of narrators, these are all Muslim, and many of them perhaps are scholars. But when the experts of hadith, they do investigations, if they find out that this person was sometimes found lying or sometimes caught lying, they automatically label that person as kadhib or kadhub or kadhab. They automatically label that person that this person has a history of lying. And now when that person comes in the chain of narrators, because of that one person, the whole hadith becomes da'if automatically. Because of that one person. Now that one person may be telling the truth, and he may not be lying when he's narrating the hadith. But that history alone puts that entire hadith in jeopardy and brings the status of that hadith from strength to weakness down. So the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam had a history. They were lying before. So Yaqoob A.S. believed the same thing, that maybe they're lying this time as well, even though they were telling the truth at this time. And whatever they were telling was based on what they saw and what they observed. And when it comes to scholars, when it comes to mujtahideen like Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam al-Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad, they too, they make judgments on their own sometimes. And sometimes their judgments are not right. They could be wrong too. Like where we have differences of opinion amongst the scholars, it doesn't mean that every scholar is right. Those who are following them, they're right. But doesn't mean that the opinion of every scholar is always right. Sometimes the opinion of this scholar will be right and that scholar's opinion will be wrong. But Allah is the judge of that. Here, sometimes even the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make their own judgment. And sometimes their judgment could be incorrect as well. Like what happened in the case of Yaqoob A.S. Here, he did not believe his children that they were telling the truth, but at the end he found out that they were telling the truth. What they reported was the truth and what was their own observation. فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. So good patience that I will exercise. عَسَى اللَّهُ أَن يَأْتِيَنِي بِهِمْ جَمِيعًا إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ. Maybe Allah will bring them back all to me in the end, for He is indeed full of knowledge and wisdom. So Yaqoob A.S. now he lost 3 of his children, and he became, of course, more sad. And he was already sad for the loss of Yusuf, and now with the fresh wound, with the fresh loss of Binyamin, he became even more sad, and that turned into grief, that turned into depression perhaps, and therefore Yaqoob alayhi salam, he turned away from his children. وَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ, he turned away from them. وَقَالَ يَا أَسَفَا عَلَى يُوسُفَ وَبِيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. He said, how great is my grief for Yusuf, and his eyes became white with sorrow, and he was suppressed with silent sorrow. Subhanallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the condition, the pain of Yaqoob alayhi salam. This separation between Yaqoob alayhi salam and Yusuf, according to some reports, lasted for 40 years, 4 decades, and according to other narrations, it lasted for 80 years. Can you imagine this long of a separation between the father and his most beloved son? But this was part of the test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you know why Yaqoob alayhi salam suffered so much with the separation of his most beloved son? There is a narration reported by Ibn Jarir rahmatullahi alayhi that explains the reason why Yaqoob alayhi salam went through so much pain and so much suffering for such a long period of time. We know that Ayyub alayhi salam, he suffered a lot, and he is known to be among the most patient people. But we forget that Yaqoob alayhi salam also exercised patience for a very long time. And we forget the kind of pain that he endured for the loss of his most beloved son, Yusuf. So, Ibn Jarir rahmatullahi alayhi has mentioned that one day or one night, Yaqoob alayhi salam was performing Salatul Tahajjud in his room. And Yusuf alayhi salam was a little boy at that time, and he happened to be sleeping in front of him. So Yusuf alayhi salam, while he was sleeping, he snored. So he snored once. That distracted Yaqoob alayhi salam from his prayer. So he started thinking about Yusuf, his little boy, his beloved child. So he started, in his prayer, he started thinking about Yusuf. And then he went back to his prayer. He continued his prayer. Of course, thinking about something else in your prayer doesn't break your prayer, doesn't invalidate your prayer. So he continued his prayer. Then Yusuf alayhi salam snored again. Once again, that took away the attention of Yaqoob A.S. from his prayer, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he started thinking about Yusuf. And after some time, he went back to his prayer. He started focusing again in his prayer and re-established that connection. Then, for the third time, Yusuf alayhi salam snored again, and that caused Yaqoob alayhi salam to lose his focus and lose his attention in his prayer again for the third time. So according to that narration, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the angels, do you see how easily this servant of mine that I love so much gets distracted from my prayer, that he's doing it for my pleasure, and how quickly he loses attention from me and he turns towards his child. Instead of focusing on me and keeping his focus on me, he turns his focus towards his child. So according to that narration, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that point said, I swear by my honor that I will make him lose his eyesight, that the sight that he turned away from me, I will make him lose his eyesight, and I will cause separation between his beloved child and him. Because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away Yusuf from him. Now, since it was the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so everything happened as it started, as all things started falling into their appropriate place. In the story of Yaqoob alayhi salam and Yusuf alayhi salam. Because if you look at it, think about it. When the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam came back to their father and they said, our son got eaten by a wolf. If Yaqoob alayhi salam was not under the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this was not the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then any normal father, any parent, what would they do at that time? Let's say someone says that your son or your daughter got eaten by an alligator. Would you just sit at home and then say astaghfirullah or inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un? Or would you get up and go to the place, go to the site where it happened, do some investigation, find out maybe something is different what you are being told? Yaqoob alayhi salam did none of that. When he was told that your son got eaten by a wolf, he just turned to Allah and he said, Sabrun Jameel. I exercise good patience. Wallahu al-musta'anu ala ma tasifun. And I seek help from Allah against what you describe. So, any other person would not just do this. They would do this, but they would do more. They would go to the site where it happened. They will find out what time, how did it happen, how did he come over here, why was he left over here, all the investigation until everything comes to a natural conclusion. But Yaqoob A.S. did none of that because it was part of the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when Allah's plan happens, then that plan overtakes everything else. How often does it happen to us? We're looking for something and it is right in front of you and you will not see it. You're looking for your key might be in your pocket, but you're going through every floor in your house, you're going through every room in your house, you're going and searching for it everywhere, and you're like, oh my God, I lost my keys, I can't find my keys. And then your wife says, did you check your pockets? Check your pockets. And your key is in your pocket. So all along, you had your key with you, but you could not find it. You had to go through that pain, that suffering, until that test was completed, and then you got your keys back. So Yaqoob A.S. was made to put through that test. And it becomes more clear that when Yusuf A.S., it's understandable when he was a slave, that he couldn't write any letter, he couldn't inform his father, he couldn't say anything, he couldn't communicate to his father that I'm alive, I'm fine, do something to get me out of here. But even when he became the king of Egypt, the most powerful person in Egypt, instead of going to his father or sending someone to his father or inquiring about his father, he did not do any of that. And he did not communicate anything about his life to his father. Furthermore, when his brothers finally arrived in Egypt, instead of telling them that I'm alive, I'm Yusuf, I'm here, and go and tell my father I'm fine, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm well, and he should come here as well, he makes a plan to keep Binyamin back as well. So he has Binyamin brought to Egypt, and then he keeps Binyamin as well, which he knows very well. Not only his separation was very painful for Yaqoob A.S, now this added more pain to Yaqoob A.S. So why was Yusuf A.S. doing that? Because he was under the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah told him not to share anything about his whereabouts until the right time comes. There was a timeline that Allah had the knowledge of, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was allowing everything to come to its natural conclusion. So Yusuf alayhi salam, Yaqoob alayhi salam, he turned away from his sons and he said, how great is my grief for Yusuf. And his eyes became white with sorrow. When you cry so much, so excessively for such a long time, you can lose your eyesight. So Yaqoob alayhi salam did lose his eyesight at one point. According to some narrations, he became blind, and his blindness lasted for 6 years because he used to cry a lot due to his separation from his most beloved son, Yusuf alayhi salam. فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. And then he became suppressed with silent sorrow. The pain was so much that at one point it made Yaqoob alayhi salam completely silent. He wouldn't share anything with anyone about about Yusuf. He wouldn't say anything. You know, if you share your pain, you feel better because it becomes lighter on your heart. So Yaqoob alayhi salam reached that point where he was holding his rage, his anger, his sadness, his grief, all to himself, that he became silent. قالوا تالله تفتأ تذكر يوسف حتى تكون حرضا أو تكون من الهالكين. One of the things that some scholars have mentioned under this ayah, where Yaqoob alayhi salam said, how great is my grief for Yusuf. They said that Allah has gifted this ummah with a special word. In times of pain, in times of hardship, and in times of loss. Do you know what that word is? What that phrase is that we have been gifted with, that we should say when we hear something bad, when something bad happens to us, when something sad happens to us, when we lose something. What is the phrase that we are taught to say? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. How powerful and how beautiful is this phrase, and how comforting this phrase is. When we are sad, when we are depressed, when we have just lost someone that we love so much, we say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah we belong, and to Allah we return. We all belong to Allah, and we all will return to Allah. This is a phrase that has been given only to this ummah, the ummah of Islam. Even the prophets before us did not know this word, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Because look at the story of Yaqoob alayhi salam. At this point, it would have been the best thing to say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, but he's saying ya asafa ala Yusuf, ya asafa ala Yusuf. How great is my pain for Yusuf. How great is my sadness for Yusuf. That's all he would say. Ya asafa ala Yusuf. قالوا تالله تفتأ تذكر يوسف حتى تكون حرضا أو تكون من الهالكين. So the children of Yaqoob A.S, they said, by Allah, never will you cease to remember Yusuf until you reach the last extremity of illness or until you die. قال إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله وأعلم من الله ما لا تعلمون. To that, Yaqoob A.S. responded, he said, I only complain of my situation and anguish to Allah. I don't complain to you. I don't cry to you. I cry to Allah. And still you are not happy about it. I don't share my pain with you. Even to his children, he wouldn't share his pain. He said, إِنَّمَا أَشْكُ بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. I only complain of my distraction and anguish to Allah. إِنِّي وَأَعْلَمُ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. And I know from Allah which you do not know. So, Yaqoob A.S. knew something that his children didn't, because he was a prophet of Allah. So perhaps he was referring to some message that Allah delivered to him, that at some point your children will be brought back to you. At some point you will have your children back. So perhaps he was referring to that, or maybe he was just thinking about the dream of Yusuf. At the beginning, Yusuf A.S. shared his dream, and he was confident that that dream has not met its interpretation yet. And since the dream has not materialized at this point, therefore at some point it will materialize, and therefore my children will come back to me. And that's why he told them, Asallahu an ya'tiyani bihim jami'a. Perhaps Allah will bring all of them back to me. Qalu. Then after saying that, Yaqoob A.S. said, Ya bani yadhhabu fatahassasu min Yusuf wa akhihi wa la tay'asu min rawhillah innahu la yay'asu min rawhillah illa al-qawmul kafirun. O my children, go and inquire about Yusuf and his brother, and never give up hope of Allah's soothing mercy. Truly, no one despairs of Allah's soothing mercy except those who have no faith, those who disbelieve. So now he instructed them to go back to Egypt and find out what is the real story, what's going on. Try to find out about Yusuf, because Yaqoob A.S. had an idea that the only place Yusuf could have ended in is Egypt. That's why he said, go back to Egypt and find out about Yusuf and find out about his brother, where they are and how they are and what they are doing, and do not lose hope in Allah's mercy. Only those lose hope in Allah's mercy, those who do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ قَالُوا يَا أَيُّهَا الْعَزِيزُ مَسَّنَا وَأَهْلَنَا الضُّرُّ وَجِئْنَا بِبِضَاعَةٍ مُزْجَاةٍ فَأَوْفِ لَنَا الْكَيْلَ وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَجْزِي الْمُتَصَدِّقِينَ. Then, when the brothers of Yusuf came back into Yusuf's presence, they said, O Aziz, the honorable one, distress has seized us and our family. We have now brought very little capital with us, so pay us full measure. We pray that you treat this as a charity to us. You give us charity, for Allah gives reward for charity. So now the brothers of Yusuf A.S. returned. And again, these are still the years of famine. The famine has not eased. They're still suffering. So now they're coming back again to get food from Egypt. And at this point, they have run out of money too. Yaqoob A.S. was not rich. He was very poor. So whatever money his children had left with, they brought that money back to Egypt. But they told the king, they told Aziz, we have brought very little capital, very little money that we have been left with, but we want you to be generous with us. We want you to give us full measure. فَأَوْفِ لَنَا الْكَيْلِ. Give us full measure. وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا. And be charitable to us. Give us sadaqah. Subhanallah. This is how desperate the condition was of the family of Yaqoob A.S. The children of Yaqoob A.S., they're literally begging. They're saying, please give us sadaqah. These were the poor, the stressful conditions at that time when it comes to the famine. That even the family of Yaqoob A.S. was literally asking the king, tasaddaq alayna, give sadaqah to us. Inna Allah yajzil mutasaddiqeen. Surely Allah rewards those who give sadaqah. Qala hal alimtum ma fa'altum bi Yusuf. Now Yusuf A.S. also melted. He saw the desperate condition that his family was in. He saw the desperate condition that his brothers were in. Same brothers who at one point had so much power against him and dumped him and threw him in the well and got rid of him and accused him of all the things. But at this time, the same brothers are now helpless. The same brothers are now in such a weak condition, such a desperate condition. So at that point, Yusuf A.S., instead of rejoicing at the misery of his brothers who wronged him, he melts and he says, هَلْ عَلِمْتُمْ مَا فَعَلْتُمْ بِيُوسُفَ وَأَخِي. Do you know what you did to Yusuf and to his brother? إِذْ أَنْتُمْ جَاهِلُونَ. When you were ignorant. You can translate the word jahil in many different ways in English language. There's a very strong meaning of that, and then there's a very light meaning of that. Light meaning is unaware. And one of the strong meanings is when you were ignorant. So he said, do you know what you did to Yusuf and his brother when you were ignorant? Meaning you were overtaken by your jealousy. And you acted upon that jealousy to do wrong to Yusuf and to his brother. Do you remember that? At that point, they were already suspecting that there's something wrong here. They were already suspecting that it looks like he's our brother Yusuf. But they didn't have the courage to say in the face of Yusuf A.S. that you are our brother Yusuf. It's like you go to a president and you try to say to the president, I think we are lost brothers. I think you are from my family. We share the same blood. You cannot say that. You will only end up embarrassing yourself. So probably due to the fear of embarrassment, they wouldn't say it, but they were already having this feeling that this man looks familiar. There's something that I know that I'm feeling that nobody else knows. So now, when Yusuf A.S. himself spoke up, they said, قَالُوا أَإِنَّكَ لَأَنْتَ يُوسُف. They said, are you the one who's Yusuf? أَإِنَّكَ لَأَنْتَ يُوسُف. Are you that Yusuf, our brother that we lost? Because they, in their wildest imagination, they could not think, they could not imagine that Yusuf, the same brother that we dumped, that was taken as a slave perhaps, now is sitting on the throne of Egypt. So they said, أَإِنَّكَ لَأَنْتَ يُوسُف. Are you indeed Yusuf? قَالَ أَنَا يُوسُف وَهَذَا أَخِي. At that point, Yusuf alayhi salam, he said, yes, I am Yusuf and this is my brother, Binyamin. They were the only two brothers from the same mother. The others were from different mothers. قَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا. Allah has indeed been gracious to all of us. Allah has been very kind to us and He has favored us. إِنَّهُ مَن يَتَّقِي وَيَصْبِرْ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And whoever is righteous and patient, then Allah does not lose the reward of those, does not waste the reward of those who do good. He was always righteous and patient. Yusuf alayhi salam, in the face of all the tragedies that happened to him, he remained patient, calm. Allah always rewards those who are patient. If you endure things patiently, Allah will not waste your reward. He will give you your reward that you deserve. So that is a promise for anyone who's righteous and patient, who's doing the right thing and who's patient. Allah will give them the reward that they deserve. قالوا تالله لقد آثرك الله علينا وإن كنا لخاطئين. They said, by Allah, indeed Allah has preferred you above us, and we certainly have been guilty of sin. They said, now we know that Allah has chosen you over us. Allah has preferred you over us. Allah has conferred His favor upon you over us. So it is Allah's decision, and we were wrong to do what we did to you. قال لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. At that moment, Yusuf alayhi salam, he speaks to his brothers and he said, on this day, let no reproach be cast on you. There is no revenge against you. He said, I have forgotten all of what you did to me. It was done for the better. Allah was always with me. Allah was always kind to me. So I'm not going to take revenge from you. These are the same words that our beloved Prophet ﷺ said when he entered Makkah. The people of Makkah also tortured him. The people of Makkah also persecuted him personally, persecuted his family, and persecuted Muslims. So when finally on the day of the conquest of Makkah, Rasulullah ﷺ enters the city of Makkah, the people of Makkah, they should be prepared to pay back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for what they did to him. But when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked them, what treatment do you expect of me? They said, we expect you to be kind to us. We expect you to be merciful to us. And he repeated the same words. He said, I will say to you what my brother Yusuf said to his brothers who wronged him. لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. There is no revenge against you today. يغفر الله لكم. Not only that, then he prays for them. May Allah forgive you for what you did to me. وهو أرحم الراحمين. And surely Allah is the most merciful of all those who show mercy. اذهبوا بقميصي هذا فألقوه على وجه أبي يأتي بصيرا وأتوني بأهلكم أجمعين. Then he said to his brothers, take this shirt of mine and put it on the face of my father. He will have his eyesight back. He will be able to see again. وَأْتُونِي بِأَهْلِكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. Then bring your entire family to me. Not only you guys should come back, but bring your mothers here. Bring our father Yaqoob here. Bring everybody here. I want all of you to come here. Yusuf a.s. was doing a very important job. He could not leave Egypt. He could not say goodbye. I'm going back to my home where I came from. He had to do that job. So instead of him going to his family, he said, bring my family to me. So then all of his family was brought back to Yusuf alayhi salam in Egypt. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Any questions? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد افضل صلواتك اللهم انا نسالك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى اللهم انا نسالك العفو والعافيه والمعافاه الدائمه في الدين والدنيا والاخره اللهم حبب الينا الايمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره الينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين اللهم انصر إخواننا في فلسطين، اللهم انصر إخواننا في غزة، اللهم انصرهم نصرا مؤزرا، اللهم كن لهم عونا ونصيرا، اللهم اشدد وطأتك على أعداء أهل فلسطين، اللهم اهزمهم وزلزلهم، اللهم شتت شملهم ومزق جمعهم ودمر ديارهم وخرب بلادهم وأنزل بهم بأسك الذي لا ترده عن القوم المجرمين. اللهم ألف بين قلوبنا وأصلح ذات بيننا ونجنا من الظلمات إلى النور وجنبنا الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. There's